back to it is where we stem from, is where they can trace the evolution of early primates to this area. And in this area, it's a war-torn society that's quite new in terms of its governance pretty much every time because there's always war. But what they've done is they've re-diverted ocean water to flow upstream or up inland, and they've used that to produce tilapia and shrimp. And then with the effluent from the tilapia and shrimp, they irrigate mangroves and salicornia, which they then use to feed their livestock, and actually have created a sustainable economy that is a full cycle system. So the water that leaves their system is actually cleaner than the polluted ocean water that entered. So it's actually a reparative system that feeds an entire nation that's desert stricken. And the groundwater there is completely salty, so there's no real hope of conventional agriculture. And this one I find is personally inspiring. I don't know if you guys can even see this back there. Permaculture is being taught in elementary schools in Australia. There are children who are raising chickens that are, grade 3 and grade 4. There are children who have their own gardens and who, when I went, they were teaching me all kinds of crazy things. And so it's really inspiring because these things are taking off around the world. When my favorite moment in Australia was when I was in the town and we were walking around and I saw this church, and they had this huge yard in front of the church that was full of pumpkins and mulberry trees and grapes and all kinds of food. It was a permaculture food forest and kitchen garden all in one. So it was just tons of food, and it looked like it wasn't being used. And so I, kind of checked my shoulders and ran up to the grapes and started picking arm lobes of the grapes and was scurrying away as this woman approached, and she stopped me, and I was like, oh God, here, I'm done. They're just gonna drag me out for stealing the church's grapes. And she tells me that there's a mulberry tree that's in full fruit right around the corner, and if I don't get it, then I'm gonna miss them because the rest of the community is gonna eat them before I do. And it was a garden that was planted for anyone to eat. It was, if you were hungry, you came to the church's land and you ate. So the homeless there are not hungry, they're simply homeless. And once you feed your belly, you give yourself enough energy to work on the next issue, which is maybe a roof over your head, or a little bit of medicine. So that for me was so uplifting, was so incredibly empowering to know that, well, we could have productive systems in the city. In the Czech Republic, all the trees in the city are either fruit or nut trees. None of these, maples are beautiful, but unless we're tapping them for maple syrup, they're not fitting any of the needs of our city. So this is a great solution. This is in, I don't have my notes here, I think this is in Sweden, I believe. This is one of the enormous wind fields that they're using to produce, I think they're up to 40% of their energy needs by 2020 is what they've got, or 49. And if you want, I have them in my presenter's notes, but I just can't see them at the moment. The next solution is in Tuvalu. Does everyone know the island of Tuvalu? So the island of Tuvalu lies, I think the entire island lies below 10 meters above sea level. So the worst case scenario prediction is 7 meter sea level rise, and so this nation will sink. And so by 2020, the entire nation of just under 20,000 people, I think, they agreed to be 100% renewable energy based by 2020 because their nation will die. They will completely cease to exist. This will be the Atlantis of our generation because of our actions. And this one I thought was really curious. I had no idea what this was at first, and to me it looks like a floating waterfall. But really what it is it's Rio de Janeiro's bid for getting the World Economic Fair, or World, what is it? Expo Sunset? It's like the World Fair, to come to Rio. They were applying for, I think, 2010. And so there, the back of this island is all solar panels, some of the most productive solar panels in the world, which you can only order from China and Russia because they only want to build it once, whereas we want to build them as many times as possible so we can sell them as many times as possible. So they're uniform amorphous solar panels, which you can only get China and Russia. They, instead of putting the extra energy from the day into batteries, which are highly toxic and really inefficient, they store them in a ginormous tank up here by pumping water to that tank. And so it's stored in form of potential energy and not in chemical energy in a battery, which is toxic. So what they need is, this is a battery that if you want to get your power from the battery, you open a valve and the water flows down over a turbine. And so you're storing water as the form of energy rather than electrical energy. So it's an incredible co-generation of two technologies. Do we understand how it works? A little bit? Solar that's pumping water up, and then When you want the power back, you open a valve and let it come down. So they'll use the solar energy during the day, but the excess is used to pump water for potential energy for later use. So permaculture as a worldview, what can we do? What does it do, and where does it do it? Well, one of the things that actually changed my life was a little film on YouTube called Greening the Desert. This is a film by Jeff Lawton. It's about 5 minutes, but it's an incredible description of what permaculture can do for you and the rest of the world. They were given 10 acres of land in Jordan to practice sustainable agricultural techniques. And so this is a completely desertified land. The soil is completely salted, way above arable limits for growth. You couldn't grow anything productive on this. And it was kind of, to me, it seems almost like the government of Jordan was like, oh, you want to do sustainable agriculture? Here, try this. And so what they did was they used natural principles of water harvesting, natural principles of mulch and soil building, and